Raging wildfires continue to burn across the country as some Canadians are forced to evacuate their homes and flee for safety. There are about 150 fires burning in Quebec alone, and the largest wildfire in Nova Scotia is still burning out of control in Shelburne County. Alberta recently ended a province-wide state of emergency, but officials warn that the situation remains serious. Well, joining us now to give us the latest updates on the wildfire situation in Canada is Dr. Kelsey Copes-Gerbitz, a forestry expert with expertise in wildfire resilience. Ma'am, welcome to Forum Daily.
Thank you for having me.
Now, we know the Prime Minister made an announcement today on Canada's wildfires. Did we learn anything new from this announcement, especially in terms of tackling these wildfires?
I think the thing that really stood out for me from that address was the reality that wildfire risk is not going to get any better this season. We are looking at continued hot and dry weather that's going to make fighting fires really challenging.
Some unfortunate news, unfortunately, but wildfire season is common in Canada. So why do you think this year's fires, their frequency, their severity, are so unprecedented? Is it purely because of climate change, Doctor?
That's a really important question. And certainly climate change has a lot to do with the kind of fire behavior that we're seeing. Fires have always existed in Canada, and so that's a really important thing to remember. But what we're seeing is that climate change is causing the wildfire season to become longer, so it's starting earlier and ending later. And it's also causing more extreme fire behavior, which means sometimes it's actually unsafe to put firefighters on the front lines fighting these fires.
Now, meanwhile, as you say, experts are warning of more wildfires to come in the future. Can you give us some perspective on what our new normal could potentially look like during wildfire seasons in the near future?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I think we're living in that new normal now. We're seeing places burn that we aren't used to seeing burn. We're seeing wildfire states of emergency. We're seeing the need to bring in resources from other parts of across the country and from other countries as well. And so this really is our new normal, unfortunately.
Fortunately, indeed. Now, how can officials prepare for potentially worse wildfires in the future?
I think we really need to have a big emphasis on being proactive about wildfire management. So that's all of the things that we can do before a wildfire ever starts. We have many months of the year when wildfires are maybe not at the top of our mind. And those are the months where it's most important to be gathering resources, to be getting communities prepared for the likelihood of an evacuation.
And on the note of communities, we know that your research looks at Indigenous land stewardship and communities that develop their own strategies to address the impact of wildfires. Can you tell us a little bit more about these strategies and how these communities deal with wildfires, and if there's something we could learn from here?
Yeah, these place-based and community-led initiatives are really important because they're supporting the ability of communities to have involvement in wildfire management around their communities. They know what they value, they know who's at risk within their communities. And so some of the lessons that we're seeing, the leadership that we're seeing from First Nations across Canada and particularly within BC and the community forests here in BC, they're really demonstrating the ways that communities can be proactively involved and play important leadership roles in this space.
And what does that look like, Doctor?
It looks like communities being prepared for the eventuality that a wildfire is going to occur. It means following fire smart principles. It means preparing your home and your community should an evacuation have to occur. And it means dealing with the kind of wildland areas that might be adjacent to a community to reduce the risk of fire moving into those areas and potentially moving into communities.
All right, and just bringing this back home to our viewers, what sort of role do individual Canadians play in mitigating and preparing for the wildfire seasons?
Individuals have a huge role to play. It's important to recognize that now is the time to learn how to coexist with wildfires, which means being ready for them to occur because they will occur, even in places that maybe are a little bit unexpected. So individuals have a responsibility to look at their homes, support their communities, get in touch with a local fire smart coordinator. And if you don't have one, maybe you could step up and be that person for your community.
All right, Dr. Copes-Gerbitz, thank you again for joining us today on Forum Daily.
Thank you so much for having me.